Hi there, Sydney Brown here, the Memoir Mastermind, and today we're going to talk about one of the most controversial topics that can surround a memoir at all. And that's the big question: should I write a tell-all? Stay tuned and let's dig in. All right, so here we go. This is going to be a really fun topic because a lot of people, the going joke when they talk about memoirs is, they know where all the skeletons are, or where the bodies are buried, or all the secrets, and when you have that kind of a joke, usually there's some laced truth in there too. So a lot of times when people joke about writing their memoirs, the friends and the family will suddenly start thinking, I hope they don't talk about that. So it's one of those things that anytime, especially if you are going to be writing a memoir, you want to make sure that you know what kind of memoir you're going to be writing. Are you going to do something that's literally just about you and a slice of your life? Or is it going to be a tell-all and you're going to have a lot of little stories about situations with other people, and you're going to have these people sweating? So that's one of the things you're really going to have to spend some time trying to figure out. Now, I know I'm laughing about it right now. Sometimes the topics are very serious and sober, and I don't want to make light of that, but it is kind of one of those things where it's a very personal decision, what you decide to do, because you are going to be sharing your truth, and your truth usually will have an impact on other people as well. So that is something that only you can decide. By the time we get done here today, though, I'm hoping that you'll at least have a better direction, a better foundation of how to make your own decision. So let's dive right in. All right, so if you're ready, let's move on. We're going to talk now about the top 10 reasons to write a tell-all memoir. Number 1, catharsis. Now, going just with a little bit of the obvious, when you're going into a tell-all type novel, there's probably some things in your history that you have to work through. So going through reflectively, processing your memories, processing, the things that maybe you should have maybe made peace with by now, or different things like that. This can be a really healing time of your life. I have some people who actually write a memoir. They take the whole year and they go through and just reflect and evaluate their entire lives, little bits at a time, and it really can help them make themselves whole again. So catharsis is the number one reason why you should do a tell-all. Number 2, inspire others. So sharing your story can actually inspire and empower other people who are facing similar situations, or struggles that you've already been through. So by you simply sharing your story, you have the potential to help save people the heartache, the heartbreak, the turmoil, the years lost on not knowing how to solve their problems, potentially even their lives. I don't want that to be blown up to, wow, you're a lifesaver. But I do want you to understand, you literally could save someone's life. It's a really, really big deal. That is why I'm so passionate about sharing memoirs and helping people help people, because we have the power to help other people, and just by sharing your story, and especially if you can reach the right people, you could be saving lives. So I don't want you to underestimate that or undervalue it, because inspiring others is a really, really big deal. All right, number 3, setting the record straight. So there's a lot of people who have gone through their life and they've bitten their tongue when people have judged them or whatever. Maybe they've had people just make assumptions about them. Why did they not? I don't know. Why did they drop out of law school? Why did they cheat on their spouse? All of these things. People make these assumptions because the person who did it oftentimes just doesn't want to talk about it. And it's their business. They shouldn't have to talk about it. But at some point, a lot of people might find that maybe someone has passed on, or they just no longer give a crap, and they decide it's time, I'm going to set the record straight. And they tell their tell all story. And that is something that maybe they would have burned a bridge if that person were still living, but after they're gone, maybe then it's time that they can tell their truth. So if it's something like that, just know you're not alone in that type of a scenario. It is fairly common, and it's a really great reason to do a tell-all. You still want it to be truthful and not just from your perspective, harming people. That's not the goal, but it's to tell the truth. Number 4, create a legacy. Now, I think that we tend to overuse this statement a lot, but at the same time, we underuse it, because when you talk about creating a legacy, what does that mean? What does it mean to you? And that may mean something entirely different to someone else. To some people, a legacy is, having your name on a memorial bench in a park. Maybe your legacy is that you donate $1,000 a year to, Special Olympics or something, and that makes you feel very, special. It's you giving back, you paying it forward, whatever. And those are all really great things. That is leaving a legacy. It is very special to the right people. When you're telling your story as part of leaving a legacy, that's a lot of different scenarios that could be wrapped into one there. So there's the person who might be my age, in their 50s, and realizing, their kids are grown, and maybe the kids are having kids, and, maybe even grandkids or great grandkids by then. You never know. But when that person realizes, I haven't hardly seen my grandkids. They're spread all over the country, and I want them to know me. And even if we didn't spend a lot of time together, I would still like them to know who I was. And that is what I see a lot. And it's a beautiful way for a grandparent to tell their stories, leave some recipes, really share some neat things, but tell some good, some good stories that are funny too. And maybe talk about your first kiss to your grandkids. There's so many things that you could be helping your kids and your grandkids and many generations to come by simply sharing your stories. You don't have to have an overcomer story. You don't have to have a tragedy in your life. You can just have had a nice, normal life, and you just want to share some of the good stories, the juicy details every now and then, things like that. So that's a really great way to leave a legacy. Now, another way to leave a legacy is when you've had those overcomer stories, when you've had the trauma in your life. Maybe you were a widow, from the war, and maybe you never remarried, or whatever the story is. Share that. And that's not just for your family either, but it could be, obviously. But people want to know those stories. I mean, you see how when we have the military parents show up and reunited with their kids, I don't know about you, but I tear up every time. We ache to see and hear and read these stories. So we want the happy endings. We want to know the stories of survival. So leave that legacy. Leave that legacy. And I really think number 4 is probably one of the most common uh, memoir tell-all purposes. And I really think that it's important that you do that. Now, moving on to number 5, building connections. Now, when you share your story to build connections, basically what I'm talking about here is you're wanting something on a deeper level with someone. You want to tell them your story, uh, things that you may not be comfortable, or maybe in conversation you wouldn't have that open door to actually share the things that you would put into your book, into your story. Because so much of the time when we're talking to each other, we're talking about weather, or the TV shows, or whatever it is. But when you tell your real story, and other people read the real stories, then they're like, oh my gosh, I totally connected with her on that. So when you're able to do that, it makes a connection with other people that you just can't undervalue. It's an amazing feeling. um, Number 6, simply honing your writing skills. When you talk about your memories and your stories and different things like that, whether you're journaling or actually drafting your memoir book, uh, you are honing your writing skills. So if you don't know what to be writing, you want to write something, but you don't really know that you want to have a memoir, write your memoir anyway, just until you figure out what else you want to do. It's a perfect place to start because it's content that you absolutely know. It's your life, and it is something that you don't want to leave this world without somebody knowing what you felt and what you thought. So everybody should, whether you publish it or not, everybody should have their story, at least bits of it, written down somewhere, because someone needs to see that. But number 7, gaining perspective. And by that, I mean, when you reflect on your life at a later time, obviously, when you're in it, a lot of the times you're just either going through the motions, or you're in survival mode, or you're just enjoying it. You don't necessarily have that reflection time, but after a while it means something else to you. And if you don't take the time to reflect on different points of your life, you really miss out on the experience. Because truly, it has been in my last years of all of the reflection that I've realized so many things. And if you don't take that time to reflect, then you just keep going until you're gone and you've never figured it out. So this is so important to gain that perspective, help you understand the experiences, maybe understand how the other people in different situations may have felt. It's a very eye-opening exercise if you allow it to be. Number 8, raise awareness. And by that, I'm talking about, a memoir can serve as a platform to raise, awareness and to discuss things that are very important to you. It can be a cause, an issue, things like that that are close to your heart. You know, maybe I know I mentioned Special Olympics a second ago. Maybe maybe you have, you know, a certain organization or you know, clean water, you know, some sort of a something that really means something to you, and you want that to be spread out, you know, for people to hear about it. If you say, you know, clean water, clean water, clean water, people aren't going to listen to you. They just aren't. People want to see the stories. They want to know, you know, there are children in this world who literally are drinking out of mud puddles where there's mosquitoes and bugs, and it's filthy, contaminated water. And most of, you know, the water in that whole area is completely unhealthy, and children are dying every day from lack of clean water. It just wrecks your stomach when you hear the story and when you read the story, as opposed to clean water, clean water. You know what I mean? So when you're able to tell a story about something that matters to you instead of yelling it out, people will hear with their heart. They'll gravitate towards you and your cause and your thing that you want to raise awareness about. It will be heard much better than it would if you just yelled. All right. Number 9, establishing credibility. This is one of the really important things if you're in business or if you're a speaker, a coach, anything like that. You know, you have expertise in a certain field and you want to either educate in that field or talk about how, I don't know if you know Russell Brunson from ClickFunnels, but one of his favorite comments is how you learned it or earned it. And so when you write a book, they call it a credibility piece. And when you share how you learned it or earned it, that expertise, people want to learn how you learned something. They don't necessarily want you to just teach them something. They want to understand your journey. And so when you share your story, you've actually taken them on a journey that they understand. You're saving them time, and you're saving them the headache and the heartache of having to go through all of the lessons, the bumps and the bruises themselves. And you're helping them by what you're showing them or teaching them. So by that, it's very important that you tell them your journey, how you learned it or earned it, because that matters. All right. And then finally, guys, number 10, and this is not something that you can ever count on, but it's something that obviously I think most people hope for, and that's financial gain. Now, like I said, it is never guaranteed, but especially when it's a tell-all type memoir, a lot of people will consider just buying a book because they just want to see if there's something juicy in there. They want to get the scoop. They want to know. And so when you write a tell-all, you do have, in my opinion, a higher chance of making sales. Now, understand that a tell-all is not fiction. So you still have the legal implications, the risks of you know, if you tell all, you may make some sales, but you may get a lawsuit. So just kind of balance that a little bit too. But obviously, everybody doesn't write for financial gain, but a lot of people do. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. You should, I believe, you should always find a way to monetize things you love, because that, in my opinion, is just a life lived. You know, that's a life blessed. If you don't have to go to a job that you hate, if you're able to work a job that you love and make money off of that and still be able to serve others and make other people happy. Wow, that's how it's supposed to be. All right, guys, let's move on and I will talk to you soon. All right, Sydney Brown back with you. This time we're going to talk about the top 10 challenges of writing a tell-all memoir. Now remember, the tell-all memoir is where you're talking about your life because it's a memoir, but you're really kind of talking about maybe scooping some information on maybe your ex-husbands or the any sort of a situation that people think they're going to get some juicy information, and they'll pick it up because they want to know. They want to know the inside stories. So a lot of the times tell-alls have a lot of attraction, but they can come with some negativity too. So let's talk about 10 challenges or reasons why you may want to not do a tell-all. So number one, we're going to talk about the emotional toll that it could just wreak. You know, basically writing about your difficult experiences. Let's say it's not even about other people. It's just about you. Being that open and that vulnerable and that bare, it can be very very scary, I guess. Is I don't even know what else to call it. It is just, you're vulnerable. You know, you have the opportunity to be hurt by what you're sharing, and it can be emotionally draining, and it might even, you know, maybe resurface some of the traumas that you haven't dealt with. So just be aware, and obviously if you're in a position to, be willing to seek someone to talk to, you know, and maybe a therapist or something to help you put some of this away. If you haven't yet, if you just buried it again, then maybe this is the right time to go ahead and work through some of that. Not judging either way, but I do believe that sometimes you can just go through this and see things differently later, when other times you may need some help. So don't hesitate. Number two, the reason you might have a challenge with a tell-all: legal concerns. So obviously, if you're talking about how, you know, this person cheated on you, or this person wrote bad checks, or this person I don't know, they gambled their life savings away, whatever it is. If you're telling someone else's secrets, you might open yourself up to some legal concerns. So just be very cautious when you're talking about other people's secrets, because this is meant to be your tell-all. So that's the fine line that you really have to walk when you're doing a tell-all memoir that involves other people, because, you know, obviously other people are coming in and you know, passing through your life. People expect to read about other people too, but you need to make sure that you protect yourself. Number three, kind of a privacy invasion. You know, when you have a tell-all, you're inviting scrutiny from the public. They're you know, they're gonna know what you've shared, and they're going to make their own judgments. Now, it's not their place to judge, but people do, and you know they do. So just be aware that, you know, if you've been on the internet ever, you know that there's trolls. You know, I have to go in here and delete some really rotten things that people say sometimes. So there are trolls, there are people who are going to judge you, And there are just people that are mean. You know, you have to make that decision for yourself. Is it something you're willing to go through? And that's truly only something that you can do, but you're opening yourself up a little bit, not right, you know, that they do it, but you're giving them some of the power to make that invasion of your privacy. Number 4, relationship strains. You know, if you and I were BFFs back in high school and you were to say, you know, Sid, she was such a slut, you know, I would have an issue with that. And I would not want to go back to the class reunion and say, hey, how about that slut comment, you know? And you have to be careful. You have to know there are consequences to what you do, and you have to make that choice. Now, if you can verify that Sid or whoever was a slut, then you know that's the facts, and maybe Sid shouldn't have been a slut, you know. But if you're going to say something that hurts someone, you really should either ask the permission or be prepared for that relationship to be strained or end. So just keep that in mind. Now, number 5, ethical considerations. You know, writing about other people, it should take some careful thought. Some like I'm saying, you know, ask their permission first. Make sure it's accurate. And if it's not something you can prove or back up, then maybe you don't want to put that there. Also, I find that you should always put disclaimers. Also, when you make comments about things, you know, in my opinion, I thought, when you say things like that, it still could be hurtful, but it's less chance of a legal incident, in my opinion. See what I just did? Now, number 6, memory reliability. You know, it depends on how long ago this was. If this was 2 years ago and you're still reliving it, you know, every day, every night in your dreams or whatever, you may be totally on point. But if this is something from 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 60 years ago, make sure that you remember it accurately, because we are fully capable of training our mind to believe what we want it to. And that works really well when you're trying to give yourself a positive mindset and shift the way you think about things. But if you became the wounded party in a situation, and you keep reminding yourself of that wounding over and over and over the years, at some point you don't remember what happened that long ago as much as you remember what you kept telling yourself. So if you reminded yourself incorrectly at some point, you may find that what you remember is entirely different than what other people remember. So make sure that you talk to other people, you know, ask them what they remember about it. Ask them, you know, what was their perspective? What did they think? And when you're doing that, you're kind of memory checking yourself, but also kind of getting a vibe for, you know, even if you remember it technically accurately, maybe it's not the same story that you thought it was at the time. So just kind of, and that's one of the really great parts of taking a full year to do your memoir, is you're able to spend that time reflecting and talking to your friends and asking your family members, you know, really digging into those things. And truly, you could get some emotional healing at the same time. So memory reliability is something that you may find is a little bit hit or miss. So always verify if you can. Number 7, criticism. So when you share your story, you can expose yourself to criticism from strangers, from experts in fields, from whatever. You may be talking about your life as a real estate agent and or as a doctor. Whatever your expertise is, whatever your journey was, you tell your story from your perspective, and that's what a memoir is. But understand that there's always going to be those people out there who know better and they know more, and maybe they really do. Maybe they are experts, true, but maybe they just have an opinion and they just want to criticize. Just know that you're opening yourself up to that. If you're doing a tell-all type thing and you're including other people or acting like the expert, you may be opening yourself up to some criticism. And then number 8, writer's block. When you're writing anything, it can be daunting to kind of try to put everything in the right order, in an order that is entertaining and interesting, intriguing. When you go into that, all of a sudden you may know it totally the topic that you want to write, but then you're like, where do I start? And so when you go through that, sometimes you just like, oh man, I don't even know how to tell. Because I want to talk about, when Billy, sold the house and his son came home from school and he had moved out and his son didn't know where his dad had moved. I just totally made that up. But, if you're going to tell that kind of a story, it's a great story. It could be very interesting, but you got to then figure out, where do I start with that? How do I make that into a really great story instead of just, one day Billy Jr. came home and poof, dad was gone. You got to do it right. So just actually, I can help you with this quite a bit if you okay, side note. Make sure you're subscribed and go ahead and like this video if you will, but also look in my other videos, because look up outlining, and that's one of the things that will knock out writer's block. But anyway, back to this, sorry. Number 9, time commitment. When you're doing a memoir, you are going to commit a lot of time to this. That's why I suggest you give yourself a year. It may take you a month. It may take you 3 months, 6 months. I don't know. It just depends on how big of a story you want to do, how deep you want to go with it. But give yourself a year on your first one, because I really believe that the personal growth and the whole journey that you can experience is so amazing that you want that extra time. But if you don't have a year, if you don't have an hour, 5 hours a week or whatever it is you allocate, because you can set it up for 15 minutes a day or an hour a week or whatever you want. I do recommend you have regular writing sessions. I love it if people can try to do each day, but at least a few times a week. And I think that's realistic too. But as long as you are going to do this, you need to make a commitment to yourself to get to that finish line, because that's what happens with a lot of people is they'll start playing with it. They'll get, this many pages in and then they'll just set it aside because they'll get busy and then they forget about it. I don't want you to forget about it. I want you to get to your finish line. And so know that there is a time commitment and know that you can do it, and just set that time aside. Now, number 10, market saturation. Now, what I mean by that, obviously, with the ability to self-publish in today's technology and in this market, there is a lot of competition. So if you're wanting to become a wealthy, best-selling author, this is probably, and I don't want to dash anyone's hopes, this is probably not going to make you rich if just on your memoir. I don't want to be hurtful. There are some stories that absolutely will bust through, but is that going to be the one that you write on your very first? I don't know. But the story needs to be told anyway. And so I urge you to do it regardless, but just know that the market is full of other memoirs. So you need to find either your special niche that has the people who want to read what you have to tell, or they are the people who, they need to read it. And you have to do the work to find them. But if you do that, then you can absolutely get through this. All right, guys. Now, I know that this was a little bit heavier. I do want everybody to know that obviously a tell-all book can be super fun. It can be very interesting. It can be just, and when I say tell-all in this aspect, I'm talking juicy stuff. When I'm talking expert or credibility, I'm also talking about that, but that's more business minded, and that's absolutely no brainer. Go for it. But on the tell all, where it involves potentially hurting other people and stuff, those are the ones that you want to put some real thought into it. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out, and make sure you comment below. I will jump in there in the comments and say hi. I'll talk to you soon. All right, Sydney Brown back again. So in other videos, we've talked about, the tell-all memoir and why you should do it and why you shouldn't do it. And now we're going to talk about, let's say you're doing it, and let's give you the top 10 tips of writing a successful memoir. Now, number one, the first thing that you really need to do is establish your purpose. Understand why you want to write this memoir in the first place. What's your why? And what is your message? What do you hope to convey to your readers? What is their benefit? What do you want to help them with? If it's entertainment, that's fine. If it's something else, that's fine as well. Just make sure you know your whys. Number two, be honest. Now, I know this is a tell-all, but it's so important that you're honest, because when you're honest, when you're authentic, when you're vulnerable with your writing, your reader is going to pick up on your vibe and they're going to connect with you. If you're faking it, if you're just writing for the sake of, trying to be dramatic or something, or adding all the flair, don't. Be real. They really do want to. Now, they don't want you to sound like you can't put a sentence together necessarily, but they do want to know your real voice. So be honest, embrace who you are. If you are plain spoken, if you do have, a bit of a flair in the way you talk, it doesn't matter. Just be who you are. Number three, this is one of my big ones. And if you follow me at all, you know this. Create an outline. I know that there are, planners and there's pantsers, and pantsers fly by the seat of their pants. Um, I get it. People may think that it's more fun, or it's more natural to not have that outline. But I promise you, when you're going from this part of your story to this part of your story, there's so much in between that if you pants that and you don't outline it, then you're going to miss some great things that should be in the middle. So create that outline, plan your structure, and make sure that it's coherent and that it tells the story, the journey that you took, because that journey is what that's where the heart is. That's where the prize is. Number 4, and you hear me say this, everyone says this, it's not just me, but show, don't tell. And I feel fairly certain that you've already heard this, but if you haven't, what that means is use vivid details, describe the feelings, the senses, the sights, the sounds. Explain that with words so your reader feels it as they journey with you. Number 5, develop your voice. Now, what I mean by that is, find your own unique and engaging way of writing. It's your own style. It is your own flair, and it's your personality. I talk, and I recommend that you do this too. Talk or type like you talk, and so I am very casual in my writing. So when I'm saying something, I'll be like, especially in my nonfiction, I will, LOL occasionally, and that's not proper grammar, but I want my readers to understand that I'm on the other side of that book, encouraging them and laughing with them, and showing them that they can do this. And I want them to feel that encouragement and feel that emotion that I have. And after people have read your books, they'll know, oh yeah, this is that person's style. I can totally tell. And it's kind of funny because you're not necessarily going to be the only person in the world with a very similar style, but it will be unique to you. So I've had people, when they're talking about in book clubs and stuff, they're talking about, this person writes in the style of this person. I really like them now too. So sometimes if you write in someone else's who's a very good writer and well known, if you write in their style, a similar style, you may end up having different people vibe with you who vibed with that person. I'm not saying steal their style, but we all have our individual style, and you need to figure out what yours is. Now, number 6, be mindful of others. And obviously, going back, this is a tell-all that we're talking about. So consider their feelings, consider consequences, the relationship. Consider all of these things as you plan out your story. Be mindful that you could hurt other people. Now, you may not care, and that's fine. I have to believe that if somebody writes a story that hurts someone else and they know that it's going to hurt them, they probably have been hurt by that person. So I'm not saying that it's your job to protect their poor little feelings after they were so cruel to you, but I do want to caution you that there may be other consequences, like legal. So just be cautious to protect yourself so that in doing a tell-all, you don't accidentally give them the power to hurt you again. Number 7, seek feedback. Now, when you're doing this, when I say seek feedback, I mean in the process of the story. Talk to only 1 or 2 very close friends, writing partners, or something like that. When you're first putting together your outline and your storyline, to make sure it's intriguing enough, make sure that it makes sense, make sure that it has the components that it should have. And then as you write, then you can maybe share it with somebody. It could be that same person again, but at some point at the end of it being done, you'll obviously want to have a couple of readers who will read the whole story in its finished form. And then that's what they call beta reading. And, really, you don't want a lot of people giving their opinions throughout it. So very limited to just 1 or 2 people, and only a couple times through the whole process. At the end, obviously, but in the very beginning, you need someone who knows enough about, 1, they are readers, and 2, you want someone who ideally knows how to put together a story. Number 8, edit ruthlessly. When you write, I need you to understand you will fall in love with what you've written, or you'll hate it. There's these emotions that are coming from you onto the page. And as you do this, you need to make sure that you don't get too emotionally tied into them. So put all the emotions into it as you put it onto the page. But then when it's time to edit, you put a different hat on and you act like you are an editor. You don't know who is in that story, but you're gonna just edit ruthlessly. You're going to make sure that it makes sense. You're going to make sure that it's in the logical order, that it has good engagement, that the pacing and all of the different things, it all makes sense, and it ends up in a really great format for you. If you do that without the emotion or editing ruthlessly, then you're going to end up with a much, much better book than you would have otherwise. So take those emotions away when it comes time to edit. You want the emotions just oozing out of you as you draft, but take them away when it's time to edit. Number 9, research the market. So understand that, memoirs, there's certain, target audiences of people who like memoirs. That's kind of what they go for. Understand them, get to know your demographic. And then if you're a specific type of memoir, you really want to get to know that niched down demographic. So get to know them, get to know what the reader expectations are, and look for another video about reader expectations. I've got one of those. But just make sure that you know what your target audience is and what they're looking for, and then study some other successful memoirs in that same genre or subgenre, and kind of, make sure that yours falls in line. I'm not saying to copy it. I'm not saying even maybe slightly model it, but mostly your readers will have expectations, and you are expected as the writer to meet the reader's expectations. So, I mean, it's a job. This is a job, and I know you can do it. You just have to spend a little bit of time digging in here, watching the videos, and you'll get there. All right, so number 10, stay persistent. This can be a very emotional roller coaster. It really can, especially in the earlier days, weeks, months, as you're going through all of the memories and the reflecting, talking to people you haven't talked to in years. asking them, you know, their opinions, making sure you can include them in the book, different things like that. You're going to go through a lot of emotions. You may want to put this down, and I urge you not to. If you need to walk away from it for a little while, set it on your alarm. Come back to it once a week, you know, and don't let yourself give up on this, because you do need to tell your story. You know you do, because you wouldn't be watching this otherwise, right? So you need to tell your story. Don't let when it gets tough make you put it away. All right. Don't walk away. Stay persistent. All right. So guys, what we've done in the course of the few sections here, we've talked about, you know, what a tell-all is. We've talked about, you know, why you should do a tell-all, why maybe you shouldn't do a tell-all, and then just some, you know, top 10 tips of how to, generally speaking, do the best tell-all you can. So there's a lot more to learn. This is literally just, you know, scratching the surface. Make sure you subscribe and find a lot of other things. I have entire courses on how to write a memoir. There's one course that it's about 14 hours long. Obviously you can take it in little bite-sized sections, but there's really a lot to learning how to do your memoir and do it well. I invite you to follow, and I look forward to getting to know you and learning your story. I please challenge you to not give up, stay persistent. You know, your story matters. Your story does matter, and it needs to be told. Someone is out there right now already waiting for your story. So I dare you. I double dare you. Let's do this.